Okay, so for your masks, you guys are gonna roll out slabs. And I have a couple different widths or thicknesses of these pieces of wood, which will guide your slab to make sure that it's the perfect and even thickness. So we're gonna cut a slab of clay off of the big block. This kind of makes it easier to start with. And if it's really thick in some areas, you can actually use the palm of your hand to squish it down a little bit. Make it a little easier, okay, to roll it out. And then you're gonna get a rolling pin. I always find it's easier for me to push away from me, but if you keep doing that, your clay could kind of get uneven a little bit. So you do wanna rotate the clay if you're gonna just roll in one direction. I feel like it always kind of gets stuck for me when I go back and forth. I also don't like using the handles because all the times that they've been cleaned and soaking in water, the handles are kind of funky, but that's okay. So I rolled it out a little bit. At this point, I would lift it up off the canvas, flip it, and now this is too wide for my rolling pin, but I can get it a little bit thinner, and then I'm going to rotate it again. And you guys kind of have to find what works for you. If you want to push away from you, push towards you. Get these back together. So, the size slab that you're going to roll depends on your design, on your drawing. So that's why it's important to have your plan before you start this part. Okay, this clay is nice and soft, so it's easy to roll out. So then once it gets to the thickness of the wood pieces on the side, feels pretty good. And you can check, you might see air bubbles come up, which you can kind of pop with a pin tool, but the fresh clay should be pretty good. So I'm going to pick this up again, flip it over, and continue rolling a little bit until should time lapse this part. Okay, so that is my slab. Okay, now as far as preparing your mask, move this over here. So I'm going to move my slab over temporarily. You guys are going to get, I have larger pieces of wood that we can wrap in plastic. Just for today, I'm going to just use a piece of cardboard that's in a plastic bag. And I'm going to get some saran wrap. Okay. And I'm going to wrap this face in that saran wrap. Okay. And you don't want to make it too tight where you might tear the saran wrap if it's not pressing against the cardboard. So something like this, you want to make sure the plastic will go into the crevices of the face. Okay? And then at this point, you can pick up your slab and drape it over that mold. And I mentioned the other day, you don't have to do this. You can use something else. You can use a balled up ShopRite bag or shopping bag, plastic, or make your own shape using paper towels or paper towel rolls. But in its plastic stage, when it's nice and soft, you're going to squish it around that face. And you can see the features are starting to become clear in the clay. And you want to go slow and see how there's cracks forming on that nose there. Little water, smooth it out. You want to keep that clay nice and moist so that it will not crack around your mask. So at this point, you have to think design-wise. What do I want to do to my mask, right? Or what am I doing? Because like I said, you should already have a plan. I do not have a plan right now. I'm just going to go with it right now. Okay, but you can take one of these knives now, and now that you know that the slab fits on your mask, it's big enough, now you can remove clay, okay? So this is where you have to think in terms of if you wanted to do one of those really like elongated masks, maybe you need to add something underneath so that you can continue the forehead up or continue the chin down, all right? So you do have to think about that as far as your mold goes. But for right now, maybe I'll just do sort of a scalloped sort of design around the mask here. Not really sure what I'm gonna do with this, because like I said, I don't have a plan, but you will, okay? So now this clay is perfectly good to use, right? So at this point you could cut shapes out. Let's say you want to add on some sort of a shape for an eyebrow. So you could do something like this, and maybe you do another one, right? Okay, you guys can make templates for this. You can create, let's see, we could roll little coils too to do like shapes around the eyelids. So maybe something like this. This would be under here, okay? And you're also gonna have to consider too, what are you cutting out, all right? These will not stay attached, right? Because I did not do what? Score and slip, okay? So let's say I want this eyebrow to stay. Maybe I'll change the shape a little bit. Okay, so you can lay out your design, make sure you like where it's going, okay? You can carefully sketch the outline with a pen tool so you know where you're scoring and slipping. You're scratching the clay, score, both sides. Okay, now if you guys don't do this, what ends up happening is you inadvertently create air pockets in the clay, which is what causes the clay pieces to become unattached during the firing process. So now I can stick this guy down here. And the idea is, as you guys add these features, you have to think about, do you want to have that hard line between the levels of clay, or are you blending them into the surface of the clay? Is it sort of like how a normal face, like the nose comes out, but it's smooth, right? We don't have an outline for how our nose sticks out of our face. So you can use the molding tools, the modeling tools, to smooth that clay out. And if you're working while it's in this nice plastic stage, it's really easy to change the shape of the clay to do what you want it to do. So you can smooth that out. You don't have to smooth out the whole thing. Maybe you just want to smooth out one side and leave the hard edge on the other side, okay? And you guys also have to think about relief, high and low relief. Are you going to carve things out of this? Are you adding things? Is it going to be, you know, I don't have one of the tools I need, that's okay. But see here, you have this brow bone sort of thing sticking out of the face. So how are you going to blend that into the clay? What are you adding to it? Textures also. Oh, that's another thing. Before you put this onto your base, you can also use stuff like this, where you can press your slabs into these texture plates. So something like this, you grab your rolling pin, squish it in there. It's like a little snake skin action, okay? And then you get some texture on that, and now you can use this in certain places. The whole thing could be textured. You can use the rollers too, you know, to create texture on your mask. As the clay dries, right now we're in the plastic stage, right? It dries a little bit. What's the next stage called? Leather hard, okay? That's when we're losing moisture. The clay is still dark gray, and that's the best stage to carve into your clay. So you can use pin tools, you could use any of like the dental carving tools that I have, and you could carve designs into your clay, okay? You can also do slip trailing which this is the same stuff that's in here, slip, right? But I mixed it up so it's really smooth, and it's in a little squeeze bottle, and you can draw with it as if you were sort of decorating sugar cookies. It's very similar to what we did with the black glue and the chalk pastels, where you don't want to drag the tip of the bottle on the clay. Oops. And then when you get a big blob like that, all you have to do is use a sponge, wipe it off, and start over. But you can create polka dots. Now these are raised surfaces in the clay. And this is a really cool design technique that you can use. It's just, right now, it's very soft, it's very liquidy. If I touch that, I'm smudging it. So you have to do this when you're at a stage where you're kind of ready to like let it sit and sort of dry. So this should be one of the last things you do. Okay, so that is basically how we're gonna start our masks. Everybody is going to do this totally different depending on their designs though, okay? So that's why it's imperative that when you come in, you have your sketches done and you have a plan for what you want to make, okay? Questions on masks, okay? 2 hand building methods we just went over. Pinching, okay, the pinch pot, just how many cultures started making pottery, you know, thousands of years ago. And then we have the slab method, which involves the rolling pin and the little pieces of wood as a guide. You can add texture to your slabs, and then we're doing the drape mold where we are draping it over something to give it some shape, and then this will, you know, be hollow inside. Okay? Good stuff.